This is From Anxiety to Love Radio, the show about undoing anxiety through A Course in Miracles and other pathways of love. Gain insights and tools to deepen your awareness of the peace that is already in you. I'm your host, Corinne Zupko. Today on From Anxiety to Love Radio, we'll be learning about healing with my friend and fellow author, Fiona Williams. All healing happens at the level of the mind. A Course in Miracles teaches that our mind is not in our body, as we usually think, but our body is actually in the mind. So when we accept healing in our minds, our bodies can reflect that, even if we don't see those results right away. Let's listen into my conversation with Fiona and her experience with using vertigo to heal the mind. Welcome, everybody. I am so excited to be here with my friend, Fiona Williams. Fiona is a fellow student and teacher of A Course in Miracles. She is a clinical hypnotherapist, an Erickson certified professional life coach, and the author of the beautiful children's book, My Mind Book. Fiona, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so thrilled that you're here because Fiona and I connected a little while ago about an experience that Fiona had that I felt would just be so helpful for everyone to know about because it really reinforces the healings that can come about through our practice of A Course in Miracles. So, Fiona, let's dive in. I'd love to hear your story.
Okay, absolutely. So for about 10 years, I realized that I've started to have some fogginess in my right ear. So I was just every now and then I was having trouble hearing and I couldn't hear my friends talk. And I always just thought maybe it was due to a cold or the pressure, just atmospheric pressure. But as time went on, when I turned 30, I had my first bout of vertigo, which for anyone who's experienced vertigo, you know, it's uncomfortable and it's debilitating. You feel like you're magnetized to the floor. So I had a few bouts of it over the course of 4 years. And I had realized, so the latest one was in March 2016. And I had realized that it correlated with whenever I was emotionally upset. I had gone through a lot of job changes and, focusing on my career with the course. So my world seemed topsy-turvy and I seemed to have a physical experience that seemed to reflect how I was feeling, just very dizzy and chaotic. And so I felt very strongly in March that this had correlated with an emotional upset about my world and my response to the world. And so with that, I decided I'd had enough. And so I just wanted to use A Course in Miracles to heal my ear and my issues with my ear. And so my fiance and my mother were very concerned and they wanted me to go to an ENT, which is ear, nose, and throat specialist. So I decided to play along. And so I went to the doctor and I got the referral. And of course, when you get the referral, it's going to be a couple of months before you have the actual ENT appointment. And so I made a promise to myself. I said, in the next 2 months before this appointment, which I'm not totally sold on, I am going to use my mind for healing, and I'm going to use the Holy Spirit. So I continued with my path with the Course. I used the lesson, Sickness is a Defense Against the Truth. I did a lot of the true forgiveness process, which is in Gary Renard's book, Love Has Forgotten No One. So there's a 3-step true forgiveness process, which I used every night. And I would also invite the Holy Spirit into my mind every night before I went to sleep to heal my mind.
That's beautiful. Would you mind? So I want to jump in here because you're hitting on some really, really rich material because that lesson with Sickness is a Defense Against the Truth has been such a profound lesson for me because I would always substitute, instead of sickness, I'd substitute my biggest teacher, which was the word anxiety. So anxiety is a defense against the truth. It's showing up because it's so screechingly, painfully loud that it's going to capture my attention. And I'm not going to look to spirit within. I'm not going to look to love. I'm going to keep my attention focused instead on that anxiety, which is serving as that defense. So I'm so glad you brought up that lesson.
Yeah.
Would you tell us a little bit about that 3-step true forgiveness process that you would work?
Absolutely. So, like I said, it's in Gary Renard's book, Love Has Forgotten No One. It's in the first chapter, What Would I Rather Be? And so the first step in the true forgiveness process is to stop the reaction. So you recognize, I am afraid, this is upsetting, whatever your fear-based reaction is, upon recognizing it, you stop it. And so you've recognized it. And then upon stopping the reaction, step 2 is to switch your thinking from ego thinking, which is why you're afraid in the first place, and you're switching it over to the Holy Spirit's thinking. So Holy Spirit, I recognize I'm afraid. Will you please judge this for me? Okay. And so we're recognizing in step 2 that we do not know how to judge. We suck at it. We just got to give it up. Right? So Holy Spirit, you know how to judge this for me. I don't, because clearly I'm upset. So the Holy Spirit, you please judge this for me. And I always say, please correct my thinking. I am open to your correction. And the healing is the result of that correction. Right? And the Holy Spirit knows what that healing looks like. My ego doesn't. So although I want immediate effects, I want immediate relief, the Holy Spirit knows what that looks like. I don't. So you kind of just have to get comfortable with not knowing when you ask the Holy Spirit to, you correct my thinking, and that's the key. And I leave it there. And then the third step, which is the most important step, and, A Course in Miracles is very, very close to Buddhism as a religion. And the Buddhists are very good at training their mind. But one thing that they do miss is the step of the atonement and forgiveness. So step 3 is absolutely vital in the true forgiveness process. So when we accept the atonement is the recognition that the separation never occurred. So what I say is step 3, I accept the atonement for myself. I recognize that this is already healed. It also never happened. And my reality right now is that I am at home in God. And I literally start to invite that feeling of overwhelming love and peace. And I just kind of envision hugging, like just hugging love, just hugging warmth. And I just let that love grow within me. That's my connection to God. So that is a vital process, is to recognize, you know what, I'm actually all okay. So we're disidentifying from the illusion and we're identifying with our reality.
I love that. So step number 1, to stop the reaction, to recognize it and stop. What do you do? How do you stop the reaction? For instance, if I'm freaking out, totally lost in fear, and it feels overwhelming, I can recognize that, but how did you stop it? What do you do to stop it?
Well, I suppose as you go through the course, or maybe if it's certain lessons compared to others, sometimes you feel a bit braver. So, you're able to stop the fear quicker. You're like, ooh, that bugs me, but I'm a little better at letting this one go. So, I think I got in regard to this issue, I got brave. I was just like, this is my thinking that I'm afraid. The biggest thing to me was, whenever you get horizontal, that's when vertigo would kick in, if it's going to kick in. So when I actually woke up a few times with my experiences with it, and I was having vertigo. So I love my sleep. I wanted to go to bed. I wanted to be horizontal and wake up and not have my world spinning around me. So going to bed at night was a very fearful thing for me for a while. And so that's when I would use it. And I got braver and braver the more that I chose to stop the reaction. Like, Fiona, it's not like you're not going to lay down and go to sleep. Like, you can't sit up going to sleep. So it was a surrender process that I knew that the more I practiced it, it was a habit, and it was my miracle habit is what I called it. So I was just going to get better at this, at surrendering and stopping the reaction. So I have the fear thought. It's just a thought. So I'm going to stop that reaction. And so I think it's easier in some cases with some things for each and every one of us. But in stopping the reaction when it's very, very scary, whatever it might be, I think the biggest thing that's helped for me is to stop, sit down, and take some deep breaths. Once I've kind of gained my composure, it may sound a bit silly, but what I choose to do, and I have the luxury of working from home, so I can do this, but I turn on something funny. So whether it's America's Funniest Home Videos, a comedian, whatever it is, and I get laughing, because laughing, A Course in Miracles teaches about the gentle laughter, right? About laughing the illusion away. And so it's an incredible coping mechanism. Incredible. This is a lot like Patch Adams, that Robin Williams movie where he used laughter to help people heal in the hospital.
I love that.
It's incredible. And it shifts your energy. It shifts it towards this sucks. I'm stuck in this, I feel like crap and whatever it might be. And it switches you to the gentle laughter. And it helps to relax you and it helps to release that energy. So to me, before I go to anything else, I need to have a good laugh. And then I'll get into having a piece of chocolate to help me calm down, doing some yoga, taking the dog for a walk. But honestly, I find laughter is a powerful device.
Awesome.
It's a powerful coping mechanism. So That's one of the things I would personally use to help me get out of fear quickly.
That's so helpful. All those suggestions for stopping the reaction and laughter being just so perfect. So that was step 1. Step 2, switching your thinking from ego, from your small self to Holy Spirit. And I love what you said, Holy Spirit, correct my thinking. That openness, that willingness to receive a new perception. And then step 3 was the atonement or forgiveness process, this recognition that our separation from our source never happened, that the seemingly separate state that we're in right now is part of the dream and that we're safe at home. So I love these 3 steps.
Awesome. Yeah, they work, honestly, they work like a charm. And, the first time you use them, we always want that evidence right away. It is a lot of trust, but man, keep knocking it out of the park. Just keep rolling with it because I have had some incredible experiences with this true forgiveness process. It is true forgiveness, not the world's version of forgiveness.
Right.
It's true. Right. So if we're going to do it right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you said that you've had a lot of miracles from this process. Let's continue with what happened with this story.
Yeah. So like I said, the ENT appointment was approaching within 2 months. So I would do the true forgiveness process. I did a Holy Spirit meditation where I would invite the Holy Spirit to, it's actually a Gary Renard video. It is on YouTube and it's a healing meditation. So you could just look up Gary Renard healing meditation. And what you're doing in this meditation is you are correcting the levels. So the first part of the meditation is recognizing that the body cannot create. It cannot make anything. It is a totally neutral device, and it is a communication device. That is the only purpose of the body. And so I would do this, and I'm correcting the levels. My mind is the creator here, and my body is the effect. And that was helpful when I recognized that I was having a response to an emotional event in my life. So I was putting the levels back where they belonged. The body is totally neutral. It cannot create. And so this Holy Spirit meditation was excellent at reminding yourself of this is actually what's going on. And at the end of it, you actually connect with God and you invite your sinlessness, right? So you connect with God. And not only that, the biggest part is in this meditation, when you connect with God, you say to yourself, my Father only ever loves me and wants to take care of me. So remember that any fear that we feel in the illusion is because we are afraid of God's judgment. And so we have made God something fearful. And so we're correcting that. So I always found that just such a powerful phrase. My Father only ever loves me and wants to take care of me. Mm-hmm. So it really softens up and helps me to develop my relationship with God. Right? So I always think that we're rekindling our relationship with God. We're rebuilding it. That is why we're here.
That's awesome.
And then it's beautiful. And then the next part is you connect with the Holy Spirit, and then you invite the Holy Spirit's white and healing light to surround your body and fill your body. And then you invite the Holy Spirit to hang out with you while you're sleeping. So you say, Holy Spirit, please remain with me while I sleep, and please heal my mind while I sleep. So one of the teachings in Gary Renard's work through Art and Impersa is that it is easier to experience the negativity and fear of our unconscious mind while we're sleeping. So when we're inviting the Holy Spirit to heal our minds while we're sleeping, you might have some pretty horrible dreams. So be prepared for that. But it is safer to experience them in the sleeping dream rather than the waking dream.
Wow. So that's all part of this healing meditation from Gary Renard.
Yes, and it's incredible. And so I just wanted to share kind of the steps and what you need to prepare yourself for. But honestly, it was absolutely crucial in my healing.
Wow.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so I did that. And then other than that, as I carried on through my day, I was just watching my reactions. And that's fine. And, when you have vertigo, you have some residual effects. And I still have that. So I don't like looking at things where you watch a sci-fi show and stars are coming at you, or things where things are spinning. So, you're going to have those residual physical effects. So I was constantly reminded, as you go through life, oh, I can't look at that. Oh, that's kind of, it's a bit unnerving. I can't do that right now. But that's okay. I allowed myself that process. I didn't beat myself up for still feeling the effects of having had vertigo, but I instead saw those reminders. Those are my reminders to forgive. So I was constantly getting those reminders. And so I just went about my day acknowledging those reminders, being grateful for them, and knowing that I'm going to get better. This is healing. So I just acknowledged that. And then the biggest step for me is just before the ENT appointment. It was 2 days before it. And I was talking to my fiance, Eric, and I said, Eric, I'm uncomfortable going through with this ENT appointment because I'm actually feeling better. My ear was no longer feeling clogged, and I could actually hear. And so I felt more relaxed about the topic. So I said, I don't want to confuse my mind by going and delving into the illusion, which would be the ENT appointment. And I'm like, but because I prefer to stay with the course. And, to me, that's true healing the mind, right? Mm-hmm. So I was having this push and pull kind of feeling. And, Eric just heard me. And I remember I just went upstairs and I gave it a good think. I meditated on it. And as I went back downstairs, I have a little Buddha statue. And I looked at the Buddha and I just said, that's it. I had just had enough. I'm like, I'm choosing God to heal. God is my reality, and that's it. God, you heal this. And I just had a good talking to, right? So I just said, God, you're my reality. Holy Spirit, I give this to you. So I was quite passionate about it, but I had just had enough. Mm-hmm. And I said, Holy Spirit, I choose God. Holy Spirit, I give this ENT appointment to you. You guide me. I'm totally here. I'm open. And it was a total surrender process. And I felt very fiery about it, not angry, but passionate. Uh-huh. And so I just kept it to myself. I didn't tell anyone that I did that. And sure enough, the next day, which was the day before the ENT appointment, the receptionist for the doctor called. And lo and behold, the doctor has something to do, and my appointment's canceled.
Wow.
Yeah. Totally. It's like, perfect. Thank you.
There's your answer. There's your answer.
Yeah. So we let the Holy Spirit, take control.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was so grateful for that. But then that evening, of course, I'm walking around on cloud 9. And because I'm feeling like I'm seeing the effects, right, of my spiritual sight. And so I went to bed that evening and I had a dream that I was in my bathroom and my right ear was tickling. And so I scratched my ear with my pinky. And all of a sudden I pulled out it was like unclogging a drain, this black oil and hair. And it was just like just black oil everywhere. And it was just my ear was unclogging, unclogging, unclogging. And the strangest thing is, of all this stuff that was unclogging out of my ear, there was a little monkey hand. Now, I refer to the ego as the cheeky little monkey in the corner of our mind. And sure enough, there was a little monkey hand that I had pulled out of my ear. And so I know it sounds really bizarre, but hey, that's dreams.
Right.
And there was black oil all over my bathroom. And then eventually it just had all come out. And I just looked in the mirror and in the dream, and I felt like a lightness go through the right side of my neck, through my ear, and up the right side of my head. And when I awoke again, I was just on cloud nine. I knew the healing had occurred.
Yeah. And how symbolic for the hand, the hand of the ego to be in there. How symbolic of just that whole idea that we started with sickness as a defense against the truth, not hearing, not the ego sort of having a hold and listening to that instead of listening to God. But what you did, which is so beautiful, and I love that fiery passion that just came up where you were like, I am giving this to the Holy Spirit. This is enough. I'm not playing this game anymore. And that dedication, that sort of steadfast determination to just dig your heels in and not listen to that voice of fear, not listen to the ego, and choose God instead is just so comforting that we can all get to this point of making this decision for God. Now, I want to just emphasize that it's so important for us to be where we're at, because Fiona, I identify with this story so much because I've been through some similar experiences myself. And yet at the same time, I know you're not saying, and I'm not saying that we have to just say, oh, hey, I'm not going to the doctor at all ever. God's going to heal all of this for me. We have to be where we're at and go if we feel that we need to go, but we can invite Holy Spirit with us. And that's when you spoke before of this process being a process. That's what it is. It's like we go through what we need to go through. We go to the doctor but then perhaps eventually there comes a time like this that you just described where internally it no longer feels right. It doesn't feel like the right thing to do anymore. And so you just steadfastly dug your heels in and chose for God instead. And that's just so inspiring.
Thank you. And I loved how you phrased it, like, I'm done with this game. And you know what? That's exactly what the ego is doing with us. It's an ego game. It's a child's playground. Jesus describes in the Course that we are little children playing with knives. And so I really, see, just how petty the ego can be, how juvenile the ego can be. And so I don't need to play the ego's game. It's really a self-esteem issue, right? When we have a low self-esteem, which we do because we're here in this world, we don't think we're deserving of God. And so the ego just tries to get us. This is the ego's playground, this physical world. And, I'm grateful that the body is a neutral device. And I'm grateful that a part of my mind is connected to God, because I'm not lost. I'm going to use this illusion correctly, and I have that choice. So I'm grateful that I, am a student of the Course and a teacher of the Course. So, I have a choice, and we all have that choice. If we're aware of this path, you don't need to play the ego's game. Awfully tempting as it can be sometimes, you don't need to play.
I love that. That is so, so helpful. And I also just want to revisit briefly when you said that you were constantly reminded, there were these little reminders of the vertigo here and there. And you saw those as reminders to forgive, as reminders to work these principles rather than seeing it as a setback. Because I think that's a huge slip up, a huge trap that we can get caught in, is like, oh, I still have this problem. I still have this anxiety. I'm not healed. I'm not doing it right, whatever it may be. But you totally reframe that and instead use that as simply reminders to come back to this process.
Yeah. And I have a hard time watching sci-fi movies or something with stars coming at me and things that spin. But it's getting better. And so instead of beating myself up and going, ugh, I actually laugh at it, right? And I'm just like, it's getting better. Like, I can actually look at more things, or I actually challenge myself, like Fiona, you're watching, this science show. stare, look, you can do it, right? And, and like I was at a baby shower the other day, and one of the chairs was a spinny chair, and there was a little boy. He was sitting in the chair just spinning in the corner of my eye. And I just kind of turned my head and I just laughed. I'm like, it's okay. You're going to feel the effects for a little bit, and it's okay. It's all for healing. And you just get to the point where you laugh it off, and you just have to be cognizant of the type of energy you're putting into things. And I could no longer go, oh, for the love of God, I can't even look at a little boy spinning in a chair. Like, woe is me. Forget it. That's ego identification. How about it means nothing? It's totally meaningless. It means nothing. So that's my reminder that the ego, the illusion, it's meaningless. Mm-hmm. Forgiveness is what I got to do, and just laugh it off.
Mm-hmm. I love that we don't have to take this all so seriously. I feel like we need that as a constant reminder. This is all so tempting to take this all so seriously.
And it's funny because my sister, she's gone through some major anxiety throughout her life. And I've been a course student for a long time. And thankfully, I'm grateful my path has been a bit easier than hers. And I recognize that. And she's just like, well, you laugh. She's like, I used to think you're a pain in the ass. But you got to laugh. It helps to cut through the seriousness of the ego and the illusion. So, yeah. It sure does. So be a pain in the ass and just laugh.
Yep. Oh, well, that's a great place for us to wrap up. Fiona, are there any final points or anything you wanted to add before we wrap up?
Yes, I did. I did have 2 takeaways, and I'll be as brief as I can. The first one is God is fact. God is a factual entity thing. The ego is the illusion. And I think, we need to remind ourselves of that more often, because we need those reminders. We need to build that, what I call the miracle neurology, right? The miracle habit of I'm retraining my mind, and then my brain is going to, get that neurology as an effect. And so God is fact. So reminding yourself, especially on the healing path, which we're all on, is that this is my reality, and it is not something to play around with. It is the truth. And just reminding ourselves of that as frequently as possible, I think, is truly helpful for us on our path. We are rekindling that relationship with God. We are rekindling that identity with God, which is our reality, and we're disidentifying from the ego. So we don't want to attack the ego. We don't want to judge it. We don't want to make it real, which is another thing why laughter is so helpful. We don't want to make it real. But then we just want to replace that with the love of God, which is so important. So God is fact. I think that's very important in healing, because the more you know that, the more you're going to identify with God. And that's where healing occurs. And you have to trust that if you ask the Holy Spirit for a correction in your thinking, Kenneth Wapnick taught before he passed that if you've asked the Holy Spirit for the correction in your thinking, and the healing, you have to let it occur. Remember, it doesn't occur in your ego's timeline. It occurs according to the Holy Spirit's timeline. The Holy Spirit knows what's best for us, and we have to trust that we have that strength of God within us to handle whatever the Holy Spirit is giving us as a tool to forgive, right? So when we release every single day to the Holy Spirit, you can't go wrong. Trust that whatever you're faced with, the Holy Spirit knows you're strong enough to handle, and your identification with God, again, is going to be the strength to help you handle that. So whatever your healing looks like. And then the second thing that I just wanted to share was make sure you get your levels correct. Okay, so there are the levels. There's the level of the body, and there's the level of the mind. Remember that the body and the illusion is an effect of the mind. And this is critical in healing. Your body cannot create, it cannot make. So whenever you've asked for bodily healing, you gotta correct your thinking. You have to go to the level of the mind. That is the level of cause. And, the Course says, Jesus says in the Course that sickness happens from level confusion. We have given the body some sort of intelligence, some sort of worth that it is not. And it is the ego that wants us to glorify the body. So we have to stop that and get our levels correct.
Awesome. Awesome. That was so incredibly helpful. Fiona, thank you so much for joining me today. Can you just tell us where your website is so we can find you?
Absolutely. My website's www.fionamaria.ca. And I've also set up a project to support my children's book, and it's called the Healthy Happy Kids Initiative. So www.healthyhappykidsinitiative.ca.
Awesome. You can find these websites and the meditation that we talked about in the show notes. Fiona, thanks again, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Wasn't that so much fun? I had such a good time chatting with Fiona, and I could list so many takeaways from this episode, but in addition to Fiona's 2 takeaways that she listed, I'll share 2 more. Number 1, repurpose your challenges. When Fiona had symptoms of vertigo show up, rather than use those symptoms to say, oh, I'm no good at this, I'm not good at A Course in Miracles, I can't heal, rather than view it as a setback, she used those symptoms as an opportunity to remember to forgive. So forgiveness, again, is forgiving to spirit within. It's forgiving to our inner teacher and asking for that shift in perception instead. So whatever challenge it is that you're faced with, when it shows up, use it as an opportunity to forgive rather than as evidence that it's a setback. It's a much, much kinder perspective. Number 2, healing comes from the recognition that the separation never occurred. In other words, we never separated from love. We never separated from our source. We are not these bodies. We remain in truth as love created us, and nothing has changed that. We are already healed. You are already healed. We simply need to accept that. So let's join in this desire to accept the healing that has already occurred. If you enjoyed this episode of From Anxiety to Love Radio, please share it on social media. Head over to our home base at FromAnxietyToLove.com for show notes and more resources. Also, if you love the show, please give us a rating on iTunes, write a review, and hit subscribe so we can reach more people who are dedicated to healing the mind. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.